Hello everyone. This is a video showing how to vectorize or make vector versions of J cards and other compact cassette artwork. Some people are asking if they could help contribute to the compact cassette artwork reproduction website, but didn't know how to vectorize files. This is going to be a tutorial of how I do it. It's not super difficult once you get used to using the tools, so I'm gonna kind of go through my process, especially J cards, which are basically simple shapes and stuff. So usually takes me less than an hour to do one J card, but we'll see how it goes here. So you'll see I have the front and back of a J card on two different artboards. I'm using Illustrator. It should be very similar if you're using programs like Inkscape or any other vector-based programs, but I'm using Illustrator since it's sort of the gold standard or industry standard here. A few things I always do as I get set up. These are currently linked files, so I'm going to go ahead and embed them into my document. That way I can delete the originals if I want, and they'll still be within this document. I also create multiple layers, and you'll understand why in a bit. So we have this first layer, which has the raster images. I call those my reference files. We'll also want a layer just for the solids. That's the shapes and colors, basically. And then our text layer above that. Sometimes I'll also add a cut layer. If I'm doing like a die cut J card, for example. This J card is a pretty basic square shape, so I don't think it'll be an issue, but that's where you would put your cut lines so that if you are printing out a special shape thing, people would know where to trim it and stuff to get that special shape. So we got that. Our files are embedded. I'm going to go ahead and turn these and straighten them out. They're kind of crooked. The original scans weren't perfectly straight on, which they never are. So to help with that, we'll throw out some guides. I'm going to turn on my rulers. I typically do things in millimeters, but other people might want to use inches or centimeters or whatever else you like. But I found on something small like this, millimeters just makes it really easy to get nice round numbers without having to worry about fractions and stuff too much. Okay, so I'm going to want, first thing I do is whatever the majority of the text is going to be, I try to get that straight up. Illustrator isn't great at doing like rotated views, so you end up having to type some things upside down and yada yada yada. So the main stuff looks like it's going to be this orientation, so I'm going to go ahead and flip them around this way. Okay, and then I want to get them as straight as possible, so an easy way to do that is we're lucky we have straight lines on this, right? I threw out my guide, which I know is perfectly straight. I want to get this to be as straight on that as possible too. So there we go, looks pretty close. I can see it's just above on top there, a little bit more on there, so maybe just a hair down. Okay, just above, perfectly. So now I know that's basically straight. Next thing, when I set up my document, I set up my artboards to be the exact size I know that this J card is. So I'm going to want to line it up so that this black line goes around exactly where it is. That way when I export it as a PDF, it'll cut off all the extra. You'll also see I have this red line. That's the bleed markers. I do a 3mm bleed. Most home printers aren't accurate enough that you can get a perfect back to front cut, so you need some sort of bleed to help with that. And you'll see how I handle that when I'm working on it. Okay, let's get this one straight up too. Okay, so we're looking at this line just above. Now it's just below. Just below. Just above. There. It's almost perfect. Great. And it doesn't have to be 100% perfectly straight, because as you're doing the art, or as you're doing the work, you'll end up putting things in straight instead of crooked, like when you're typing text or drawing lines, you just make sure to draw them straight, and then the final product will end up straight too. Okay, you can see we have this all lined up pretty good. Okay, don't need my guide anymore then for that. Once I have them in place, I like to lock that layer, that way I don't accidentally move them around, and for the most part I'll leave that locked for the remainder. I have things set up, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. off, and I'm the kind of person that's saving constantly, so you'll see me save quite a bit. Every couple moves, basically, I do. This is a J card by TDK. It's the ARX 46 from 1987. Perfect. Okay, the other thing I know I'm going to need is, you can see there's a lot of the TDK logo, this logo, this ARX logo. Those are all things that I'm going to have to do multiple times, and I'm in a position where I've made this TDK logo before, I've made this ARX logo before, so no point in me drawing them from scratch again. Might as well just copy them from other documents. So I'm going to go ahead and open up some files here. I have the TDK logo, bam, and I also have the ARX logo somewhere in here. There it is. Okay, so these I've previously drawn and traced perfectly. So to save some time, just copy this in, and I can paste that in here. So I'm going to want to work on my text layer. All text, including logos, which is the majority text, I put in my text layer, because for the most part I'm going to want that to be on top of my solids. It's above things. So it's just easier if I have multiple layers with only the things referenced to them. That way, if I need to turn all the text off at once just to see how something looks, I can turn the whole layer off. So let's go ahead and line this up a little bit, scale it down. I'm holding shift to get a perfect scale. Bada bing, bada boom. You can see got the right height. One thing you're going to have to understand is, even though we're replicating and trying to get this as accurate as possible, rarely do things line up 100%. You're looking for that 95% accurate mark, right? And the reason for that is, I'd created this logo from some other document. Now I'm on this document. Between the two scans, maybe there was a slight bulge or a refocus or whatever. Maybe when this was printed on this document, it was scaled up just a hair. So as long as it's very, very close, I know it's going to be just fine and not noticeable. So I'm going to save that off. Okay, let's get the TDK logo in here. Shrink that down. Again, I'm shift scaling down to keep it from skewing off. Okay. Okay, just a little bit bigger. There we go, looking good. Great. Okay, and in this case, we got the registered trademark symbol, so I'm going to go ahead and type that up. I'm going to go into the glyphs section. The other thing you could also do is just Google for this symbol if you don't know how to type it in, and copy and paste it into it, which would be pretty fine. There it is, registered trademark. The registered trademark is going to be on a lot of different fonts. It's a glyph in a bunch of fonts, but for the most part, I've found that a lot of these older things, 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, use a very, very sans serif version of the registered trademark, a very basics version. So I like to grab the Helvetica registered trademark, standard Roman size. Throw that in there. Looking good. Okay, so what I do is, as much as possible, I do all the variations while I'm kind of in the mood. So I know there's another TDK logo right here. Let's go ahead and rotate that. Is it 90 or 270? It's 270. Perfect. Again, for things like this logo, as much as possible, I'm doing a shift scale to keep it from skewing. Perfect, perfect. And I'm doing everything in my text layer still. Okay, great. What about, oh, here we go. There's another one directly to the right. What I'm going to do here is I'm holding Alt in Illustrator while I'm dragging it. That way it copies it. And if I hold Shift, it'll also keep it perfectly horizontal. Okay, great. So you'll see, okay, here it's lined up perfectly. I did a perfect straight horizontal, meaning it couldn't go up or down, but here it's a little higher. I'm actually not going to account for that, and the reason for that is this scan might just be, 0.2 millimeters higher than that one when I cut it out, or when it was scanned in, or where it's lined up. But I know that when they would have printed this, they would have had these two marks perfectly level with each other. So no point in me, you could adjust for it, but I'm not going to in this case. These lines right here, the fold lines, are where it's supposed to be centered around. So I'm not gonna, you don't have to draw those in. Okay, we got another, do I have any other TDK logos? Doesn't look like. Next one will be this over here. Okay, what I need is this 46, and I've done enough of these to know after you've done a bunch, you start to learn what these fonts are. This looks like Helvetica to me. Yep, standard Roman, it's not bold, so I'm gonna go ahead and scale this up. Okay. And what I like to do is go for the height. I get the height right by scaling it up perfectly. Then I'll use either the skew in, something like this, to get it there, or in this case, I don't think they skewed it in. I think they just adjusted the the tracking. So I'll just go ahead and subtract that out till it pretty much lines up perfectly. Okay. Again, you're going to see little differences, right? Look at my 4. It's the right height, but it's just a hair off. And most of those differences can be accounted for. I'm almost 100% positive this was Helvetica. They could have used some very, very faint alteration. You know, there's Arial that's out there, but Arial's actually more different to Helvetica than this would be. There's a lot of Helvetica copies out there, so they might have used some cheap knockoff of Helvetica. Or what's more likely is this is pre-digital, you know, pre-heavy digital. They probably used whatever typeface version of Helvetica they had, and over the years, especially as it was converted to a font for computers, Helvetica changed slightly, a hair amount, you know, to account for this. But on the grand scheme of things, I turn it off, right? Almost no difference. If I found that something was really far off, like let's say this 4 was really out here like this, you could do micro adjustments to force it in, right? I'll go ahead and undo that. Like if I go like this, that could adjust it. I could even create this into an outline. I could convert this text into an outline and then move the anchor points to force it to be perfect, right? Like that, and then that. Get closer, I'd have to adjust that. The problem with doing that, I could get it really, really close to perfect, is that it's no longer a font, it's just outlines. And I know in the future I'm going to want to create variations of this J card, of this ARX 46 1987 J card. I'm going to want to do the 50-minute, the 54, the 72, all the versions. And if I create outlines of this number for that, instead of typing it in, when I do those next variations, I won't be able to just type in 90. I'll have to manually create those text fonts too. I'll have to create outlines of every single version and micro adjust them. It's worth it to me to have a font that's what, you know, apparently maybe 5 to 10% wrong, if even that, so I can type in those future numbers. And again, when I back out to 100%, you know, this is the scale you're actually watching it on. When you're not zoomed in like this, we go to 100% and I turn those layers off, right? And look at it compared to original. Whew, it's awfully close. So it's worth it to keep it as is, in my opinion. You do things how you want. Okay, I want to go like this. Grab that. We're going to go 270 again. Oops, 90. There you are. Okay, we'll scale that down. There we go. Just a bit bigger here, not much. Center it off. Great. Okay, let's grab this 46. Grab that. Scale it down. Get the height right, like I said, and then kind of center it off. Very nice. Okay, looking good. And in this case, we're going with white. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and group these together so I can more easily manipulate them together here, because I want to move them and put a copy over there. And line it up. And again, I'm doing a shift move, shift alt move. That way it keeps it perfectly horizontal. And just like our logo, it's a hair high compared to the scan, but that's fine because we're doing it on both. Okay, so we got both of those. The next thing I'm gonna start throwing in some solids behind these to see how they work. Now, there are a few ways I can get the colors of the solid. Um, the most obvious and clear choice is grabbing the eyedropper, and that'll give me this color here. I happen to be doing a whole series of these J cards and the packaging that goes around them. So I want the color to match between them. If every time I open do a new one, I grab the eyedropper from that scan, I'd be getting slightly different versions, right? Because you can see this is a scan and this was print. It's not perfectly, a solid color. That's part of the reason why we're vectorizing it, so we can get the exact, have a solid color all the way throughout, and it'll look perfect on screen, or when you print, you'll get as close to a solid as you can. I want it to be the same shade of this aqua across the board, so instead of grabbing the eyedropper from this one, I'm going to open up a document I already did for this series of cards. Okay. See, it's the packaging. So here's some packaging I've done. This is the shade of aqua I've gone with. I'm going to go with it across the board. So now I'm going to go back to my original document. I copied the code, the color code. I want to work with my solid layers now. Throw that in here. Bam. You'll see on that one it was slightly darker, just a bit. Yeah, more of a, I don't know, a little bit more blue than a green. Throw that down. Throw that down. Yeah. Let's see how that looks. Oops. I want to turn off the solids here. Yeah, it was much darker. This was a much darker photo here. And in fact, it was so dark, I'm starting to think I almost prefer this color. This looks like it was done from a scan versus this done from a high quality photograph. And a scan might be a little bit better at grabbing color accuracy. So I'm actually, despite what I said, going to grab this color instead. Apply it to this. Boom. Yeah, look how nice that looks. It looks like probably what they're going for. I'll grab that code, and I'm going to go back to my packaging here. Select the same color across this entire document, and I'm going to upgrade that. There we go. That looks pretty good. Yeah. Yeah, when I look at this photograph, you can tell it was a fairly dark taken photograph. Probably didn't have enough light going on it or whatever, which doesn't surprise me. It's hard to photograph stuff like this without a light box. So I'm assuming that this scan is a more accurate color, so I'm going to use this as my new reference for all the versions. Okay, this we got sort of a solid, almost like a metallic mimicking, but I don't think it actually was metallic print. I'd be surprised if they used metallic print on the J card. It doesn't quite look like that either. It doesn't look like actual metal, just like an imitation. So we'll grab that color, and this will be my new reference for that, wherever this type of color is used in the J card, which it looks like this is the only place. So bring that down, line it up, expand it out. Now you'll see, I'm making these shapes much, much bigger than I have to, right? And the reason for that is I'm making them, anything that goes to the edge of the card, I'm pulling out past the bleed mark, past this red line, which is my bleed mark. That way when I export it as a PDF with bleed, for people who need that extra bleed, who are going to print it on a home printer and trim it out, they'll get that extra space. So if their printer is maybe a mil or two off between the top and the back, the front and the back, they can just trim it on one side, trim it up, and the back side will still have that extra. It's kind of giving you a buffer, you might say. I always do two versions, one without bleed and one with bleed. That's just a very normal, very standard thing when you're working with printers. Some printers want bleed, some say nope, our printers are accurate and perfectly accurate front to back, we don't need bleed, and yada yada yada. And our trim marks are great. So okay, let's get this text in here, because once I finish this text, I can kind of move down and continue doing. And like I said, what you're probably noticing is once I finish an area of text, I'll go back and do the solids behind it and kind of work my way throughout the whole card. And by keeping solids on a layer lower than text, they'll always end up behind the text here. Yeah, look at that, looking good. Okay, so let's move to our text layer, and I'm going to try to get this text here. We'll throw some text down. Let's make it smaller so I can work with it. It looks like Helvetica to me. I'm not sure yet, but let's type it out. Super precision anti-resonance. In fact, it looks like Helvetica bold, possibly, but very, very small. Okay, when I have my text up here, instead of manually adjusting by the scale, which you can do, right? That'll get you down and everything. The odds of this being an exact, you know, 1, 2, 3, an exact number without a decimal, really, really small. Again, we're going from a print to a scan to my digital, over the years. The odds that they made the same thing in Illustrator, 0%. So I'm going to go ahead and scale it down until I get close to it and make sure it's the right font. Yeah, it looks like it's probably Helvetica in bold. I think it is. Did I forget a... Nope, I got it. Their dash is a little bit longer, though. They use the longer dash. Type glyph, something like this, I think. Yeah, that looks closer. Okay. Okay, and so I check to see... I try to get the height right, like I said. So the height is about here. Okay, what's the... Now I can... Again, two ways I can do it. I could do it like this and see how that looks. That's pretty darn close. I might go with that. The other way is by adjusting this. And so you'll see it's still set to -50 from the last line I did. I made a new layer. If I set this up to 0, hey, look how close the word super is. Super close. Let's see if we can get one word all lined up. About there at 20. Yeah, very, very close. Then for the rest, I can go out. How many letters are lined up? Pretty darn close, like that. And you'll see my hyphen is a little bit longer than theirs. Maybe I should switch it back to the other hyphen mark. Actually, no, that'll be too short. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so we'll go down to the next line. Oops. And if you did things pretty close on that top line, you'll see how close it lines up right there. The line spacing is just a hair off. There we go. That happened. Looks like it's exactly 3 points. Perfect. Got that lined up. Let's move this down. This looks like the same thing, just larger. Okay. Again, I'm pretty sure it's Helvetica bold, just larger. Scale that up. Oh yeah, look at how close that's getting already. We'll throw that on there. Okay. Now, unfortunately, a lot of modern fonts, the digital versions, don't include glyphs for Roman numerals. There's a couple ways they could have done this. They might have used a different font, or maybe the print version of Helvetica they had Roman numerals built in. I think they just faked it. It's what I do too. So I look at my, this is a capital I in this case. I make a bar. I rotate that 90. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and throw this up until it's even. The top. Okay, and then I get it even to the width. This is just one way of easily centering something. Then I'm going to hold Alt while scaling the width, and you'll see it'll go out. Get it to about that. Great, looks good. Alt shift it down until it lines up on the bottom. Bam, you got yourself a Roman numeral. Let's turn off the reference. Yeah, very, very close. You'll see that on these, this is a common problem doing J cards and any sort of cassette artwork. They use Roman numerals for the types all over the place, and it's actually pretty annoying if they decide to go with legit Roman numerals with the, I don't know if these are considered serifs or not, but the bars on the top and the bottom for the different numbers. Most modern fonts just don't have built-in Roman numerals into their glyphs. Some do, and then you're pretty lucky and you can just type it in, but I have to fake it each time or most times. Okay, so we got that up. Looking good there. Very nice. Did I make sure to put that in the text layer? I did. Okay. Now we get to go to the part that I think is kind of fun, or often can be fun. We're going to go down to our solid layers. We're going to replicate these lines here. Okay? So first thing, I'm going to go ahead and get a rounded ellipse. Circle here. Okay, good. I'm going to go ahead and center it on the document. So I use my align tool to center that. And you'll see that just means my scan is just slightly more left, or they printed slightly left. But their idea was to have these dots centered on the page, right? So I went in and centered it. So mine's a little off to the right. Okay, we need a line here. I'm going to just draw a line. You could do this with a rectangle tool too, but it'd have to be a very thin rectangle. We'll do a stroke. Let's start with 5. We got that a black 0.5. You're going to be dealing with really thin strokes when you're doing this kind of work. Oh yeah, that's pretty darn close. Good, good, good. Great. Okay, center that up too. As long as it doesn't really matter if it's centered, as long as it's past our bleed line, because you can see that it went straight to edge, so we want it to go all the way past. Okay, we got that. Let's select both of those. A couple ways I could replicate this. Copy and paste is the most obvious one, but also the most work. I could do an Alt-Shift down and drag and just do one at a time. But if I want to make sure the spacing is perfect between each of them, the transform each tool is what I'm going to want to do. And in this case, I'm going to vertically adjust it. So go down. I bet it's close to 5. It's almost always close to 5. Yeah, look at that. It seems like on all these J cards, they gave you 5 mil of spacing between lines for you to write your song names and artists and stuff like that. I don't know why they just all pick 5 mil. I've had some at like 4.8 and 5.2, but it's always right around 5 mil. So copy. This looks very, very close, so I'll copy that. And then if I Control D, it'll repeat that function. And in this case, we got lucky. It's perfect across all of them. We'll do one more. Okay, great, great, great. This needs to be a little bit thicker though. It's like a halfway point. It looks like it's probably 1. No, not quite 2. It's probably like 1.5. Yeah, that looks right. Cool, cool, cool. We want it to be our aqua color, so we'll grab that. Okay. If I was going to be using this color a lot, like a ton throughout the document, I would add it to my swatches so that I wouldn't have to like copy and paste the hex code every time, but it doesn't look like it's going to be that bad. Okay, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus a green line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus a green line, so I want to do the same exact thing. Line that up, and now we know that these are all spaced perfectly between themselves too. We got some sort of extra line here. Let's get that up. Looks like it's even thinner than the others though, which is kind of funny. So we'll go bring that down to 0.25, and let's confirm that if I turn my solid layers off. No, actually it was supposed to be as thick as the rest. Okay, they're all the same. It just looks thinner to me for some reason. Got that drawn up. We have all these shapes. So that just killed a lot of, area in one fell swoop. It's awesome when you can do a kind of a step and a repeat almost, if you want to call it that. And we'll be doing that over here to save time. Okay, now I want to get this lettering. I'm going to do this down here. Again, this looks like Helvetica to me. Either bold or maybe just a thicker, a stroked version of Roman. But we'll start with bold. Yeah, pretty darn close to bold. The Helvetica bold version, though, isn't a super bold. They have made so many versions of Helvetica over the year. There's black and condensed and compressed, and this isn't even all of them, of course. But yeah, that looks pretty darn close here. Helvetica bold. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And again, I want it to be my green color. Fill it in. Great. Okay. This almost definitely looks like Helvetica, so I'm just going to go ahead and start by typing this all out. This seems to be the Roman version, though. Okay. I'll adjust the line spacing a bit right away. I'll have to micro adjust this, of course. I just don't want it to be way, way off. That's all. Noise. Reduction. Perfect. After doing... I've done nearly 100 of these J cards now, maybe more. You get pretty used to typing some of these words like noise reduction and on off and time and date and yada yada yada. Okay, unfortunately they're never exactly the same between different tapes, so you end up having to retype it each time. I wouldn't say you can't just copy like logos. Logos are the same across documents, but words like this, there's always just enough differences scale wise and everything else that it's not worth it. You just have to retype it. Okay, so I have it pretty darn close to the height, pretty darn close to the width. I can see that it's a little shorter, but it's probably shorter because the modern version of Helvetica's slash is a little bit more vertical. Not a big deal here. Let's go ahead and get the line height right though. It's more like 6.5 it looks like. Perfect. Great. Okay. Let's get the rest of this. Oh yeah, look at that. Nice and lined up. No adjustment needed. Very, very close. Okay, I'm on my, oops, I accidentally threw that on my solid layer. I want that on my text layer. Same with this. Save that up, but on my solid layer, I'm going to draw my little checkboxes here. They're almost always perfect squares, so I just like to do a shift hold or just make sure that when I'm drawing it, it's got it. I'm going to lock my text layer so I can easily select. No, I said lock text layer. It's just not on my text layer. Oh, it's on my cut layer for some reason. There we go. Okay, get my stroke reversed. It's going to be way too thick. Get that down to probably 0.5. Is that too thick? Yeah, it's too thick. There we go, 0.25 in this case. Put a second one over there. There we go. I can turn my layer, unlock my layer again. Okay, so now I have this, all this, plus my A. I'm going to want to do that, so let's go ahead and select all of that. Alt-shift it up, line it up. Look at that. Switch this to a B. Bada bing, bada boom. We have one side complete. Turn off my reference layer. Perfect. Okay. Now we're going to go over this side. Again, a lot of typing. A's, B's, mono, stereo, date. What I'll do though is I'll get one of these complete and then copy and paste it down and just change to be like we just did and save some time here. Okay, so first let's get this A up. We'll put that on my solid line. Again, I'm going to guess it looks pretty close to a square. Yeah, it is, but black of course. And I should have done the text first. Oops. So there's my A. Helvetica, probably bold just like the other A was. Scale it up to the right height. There we go. This one I'm going to get a little micro adjustment. It looks like it's just a hair wider. Who knows if they actually meant to do that on purpose, but I'll get it more accurate. Throw this over there. Look at that. Very nice looking. Got our nice looking egg. Okay. Let's do this. This is all Helvetica 2. A lot of lines. One Helvetica oblique. If I'm lucky, I can do this all as fairly one big line, but we'll find out. Switch this down to Roman. Okay. So I'm going to try to get this as perfect as possible to start with. Do all my adjustments on this one word, right? That way I can use that as reference because presumably they would use the exact same font size and font across all of these, and it sure looks like they did. So the word date is pretty darn lined up. Bring that down. Let's type in the word time. Look at that, pretty darn close. Okay. Grab this, put it over there. Mono. Stereo. The tracking is just a bit lower than, oh yeah, I have it set 20, that's probably why. We'll get it down to 0. That got it closer. Let's make these 0 too, so it's the same tracking across all of them. Good, cool. Okay, get this over here, line that up. Normal. I noticed that other things that they do in all caps, like mono stereo across the board, normal bias, they'll always do as standard case, just capital first letters and the rest lowercase. I'm not sure how they came, was that like a rule from the compact cassette consortium, the bias you have to type, you can't do an all cap, how do they decide things? Okay, this is some sort of special Greek letter, right? What does it stand for? Microsecond or something? So let's take a look here. I know we have it. It's always in a different place though. I just gotta find it. It's like the backwards U. I hate having to look for it. There's pi. Sometimes when I get really annoyed and I can't find it, I'll just Google that symbol name instead and go from that. But we'll see if we can find it in here. I'm also going to switch it to the oblique version because I know it's kind of a italic. You're probably seeing it. Oh, there it is. Bam. Okay. another thing. Yeah, they always, it's always an italicized version of that for some reason. It's never this straight up and down version. Whatever. I don't make the rules. Noise reduction in and out. That lined up real nice. Okay, and then we got some brackets here. Great. Except these brackets are supposed to be centered vertically. So we'll cut that out. Go like that. It's just supposed to be a little bit higher. Okay. Oops, I've been doing that whole thing in the solid layer. I meant to do that in my text layer, so I'll move that up. Back in solids, we're going to draw our little boxes again. Get a square here. Reverse the color down to 0.25. Great. I want these all to be the same height exactly, so go like that. Very nice. Let's turn off our reference layer, see how that's looking. Looking great. A couple of dots for no apparent reason. Oh, they often do things like this. They throw dots in places. It's like, okay, why? I don't know. It looks nice. Throw that up there. Throw that over there. Then I want these to be down there. Looking good. Okay, now we'll select all of that. Copy and drag that down. We got lucky. It all lined up again, so they didn't do anything silly. Make that a B. We're pretty much set. Okay, we also want black backing on that. Am I on my solids? No, I am. So if I grab this, I'm going to want this to be the same exact height so that that part lines up, right? Move it over. Okay, I don't want it to be that wide though. And then adjust this down until we get to the height we want. Make it black. Perfect. Hey guys, we're almost done. All we have to do is replicate this grid now. And there's a few different ways you could do it. The actual making of the grid is going to be pretty easy. We'll use our kind of step and repeat or copy and repeat thing. But in this case, we have sort of a darkish color. Now, if you know anything about print, you know they're always trying to avoid the number of colors they can use. So it looks to me like on the back here, you know, on one side they decide to go 3-color or 4-color, black, 3-color, black, green, and brown, gold color. But to save some money on this side, on this, they only did black and white. Those are the only 2 colors they used. Well, you're saying, but look at this. This is sort of a light black or, you know, gray. Well, it's not really. It's actually a duotone. They used tiny little black dots with spacing between it to simulate gray. So when it's very, very close or it's very, very small, but from far away, it gives it sort of a gray effect. I could try to replicate that duotone. In programs like Illustrator, that's a lot of work. It usually involves using, you know, they have a duotone effect in Illustrator and other tools, but it can only do dots so small. So I'd either have to create a dot pattern of my own that's smaller with smaller dots, and then apply that pattern to a shape here, which would work, but it's a lot of work to set up and get perfect because you're doing some guesswork. I could create a larger image, a huge image, and use the built-in duotone effect, rasterize it, and then scale it down to get the images small enough. But that involves a lot of guesswork too. I'm guessing when I've done that in the past, I end up doing it like, you know, 10 or 20 times. And it doesn't always work. It doesn't look perfect. Plus, that involves adding a rasterized image to my work, which I don't love doing. Or I can take sort of the cheap method, which is going to get me very, very close and unnoticeable by most printers, especially at this scale. And since I know people aren't going to be scaling this up, it's meant to be printed at scale, this effect should work. And what I'm going to do instead is go for the end goal that they were going for. They were going for a gray halfway between black and white, right? This dot pattern is half black, half white. Well, how can I find something between half black and half white? I can take a rectangle, a black rectangle, draw it all the way, scale it out, past my lines, okay? And then I can set the transparency to 50%. Now when I turn this off and go back out over white, you can see it's pretty darn close. Now, that's probably technically accurate. This is probably technically true or incredibly close to a, a logical truth. The other thing I could do is I could turn this on and see what color, if I do just a random check, what do I get? I get a much lighter color than what this, if I turn this off again now, than what that appears to be. This gray for that select. So I could take this shape, and apply that gray color to it and leave it at 100%, and that'd also be pretty darn close, or pretty close to what I want. So let's do that in this case. I'm going to turn this back on. Take this, do a color there. I'm going to put my transparency up. Again, not perfect here, especially when I'm zoomed in, but when I'm out at 100% and then compare it, whew, that's awfully close, isn't it, right? And once we get our lines in there, I think it'll be even closer. Let me turn this on. I don't know, I got that. There we go, I got that right. Okay, so we got my gray shape. I'm going to go ahead and disable that color, that shape for now. Oh, and to kind of finish with my thoughts, I would just go with, for the method you pick, whatever looks closest, and gives you the look you're going for. So in my case, I'm happy with a gray square here. Okay, now I want to get these white lines in them, these solid white lines between them. Let's start with the horizontal. It seems like an easy one to go with. It'll also help us give our scale. Probably going to be 5 mil again. I bet they stuck with that, but who knows. Okay, 0.25. It looks like a pretty darn thin line. Yeah, right like that. Pretty darn thin white line. Okay, so I'm going to do a step and repeat, or transform each is what they call it here in Illustrator. Okay, if I do 5 mil, it's already set up, so I can go up and down. Yeah, look how close that is. Okay, let's try that. Do a couple more. Oh yeah. I mean, it's going a bit past it on some of these next ones, but clearly 5 mil is what they were going for. I doubt they would have done purposely 5.05 mil or something silly like that. Okay, now let's do this line. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go past this shape just to make sure I get a nice smooth, and I'll bring this up a bit. Where is that shape? There you are. Move that up in the order. Boop, 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 boop. Past all these lines. Oh yeah, now it's hidden. Okay. Grab this again, and if they did squares, which would make sense that they would have done, it should just be 5 mil to the right. And it seems to be. Repeat that. I'm pressing Control D to repeat. You can see we're getting a bit past it. I could try to account for that, but again, their goal, the purpose was probably 5 mil between each one, and the scan just isn't 100% perfectly straight or level. So I'd rather replicate what it was meant to be or should have been versus recreating this exact scan. Okay. So now we have everything. I turn off my reference layer. Oop, my salt, yeah. And where did my gray shape go? Oh yeah, I turned that off, didn't I? Gray, where are you? Did I not put you? Did I delete it? There you are. Aha. Okay. Go back out to 100%. Turn off the reference layer, and you can see we have a completed document. So I like to turn off the reference layer a couple times, turn it on and off. That'll help you catch like if something pops in or pops out, but it's looking good. I don't think we missed anything. So now I turn off the reference layer for good. I'm going to do one more Control Save, and now we just have to turn these bad boys into PDFs. I like to do two types of PDFs. In Illustrator, we do Save as Copy. We'll do a PDF. I name it what the file's named, basically. And I like to do a high quality print default, but turn off preserve Illustrator editing. These are meant for people to print, they're not meant for people to edit, so this helps keep the file size much smaller. If I left this box checked, the file would basically end up being the same size it is now, which might be multiple meg large, and across hundreds you end up with gigs of files people are downloading, which people don't really need to print, right? They just want to be able to download this and print it or see it. They don't need the editing capabilities. This would also keep all the layers intact and include my reference files, things that, again, people printing don't need. So we'll save that as a PDF. It's warning me that people can't edit it. Good, got to go. And then I like to create another copy with bleed. And I have a special pre-built thing for that that includes the bleed marks and the printer's marks, and we'll save that out. Okay, last thing you need to do is take a look at your file. So here's my bleed file version. And as you can see, it includes my cut marks, right? So here's page 1. And the cut marks, the actual file size, or the actual J-card size is with, you would cut on these black lines. But you'll see that my colors, like in the real thing, go past it. And that way someone can trim it just a little wide if they need to based on the front and back pages. Otherwise, we got our J-card. We are done and complete. From here, you just upload it to, share it with whoever you want. Print it on a standard printer because it's a PDF. It'll print to size. No need to manually tweak the settings or anything. It's perfect. And you have a fully rasterized, fresh J-card made. Thanks for watching.